Good afternoon, Dr. Jordan. It's kind of weird that we've never met. I'm Melissa. I know you'll know that by how I submit my video, but I just wanted to say that. And I wanted to say that when I first started taking this class, I was really apprehensive because theology always makes me think of religion, and I'm really not a religious person. But this class actually really helped me through a recent suffering situation that I just went through, which is kind of what I want to talk about in my video. The first question that you ask us is, what value can we see in the suffering that we witness and experience? I recently went through an abusive relationship that had to end in a restraining order, unfortunately. And going through that situation, I could not see any positives of how that could possibly help me or benefit me. It ruined relationships I had with my family members, with my friends. I lost a job because of it. And it wasn't until I took this class that I realized that there's so much of a benefit that you can have through going through these bad situations, because even though I went through that horrible situation with that person, I can now see, as a result of this class, that suffering taught me so much. It taught me that not everyone has a kind of a heart as you. Not everyone has the same tensions in life that you have, and that you really need to focus on the actions that people are doing to show you how they feel about you and not just their words, because words can be really empty. And the value and the benefit that I feel from that is that now I know who the important people are in my life and what they have done for me, and that there were some relationships that I took for granted that I'm now trying to work on getting back. But what that experience taught me, is to focus on the good relationships that I have in my life and stop trying to make a good relationship out of something that wasn't good just because I was looking for something where there wasn't anything. And that situation really taught me to focus more on the positives of the things that I already have in my life instead of wishing for something else, kind of seeing the forest for the trees and seeing that forest has beautiful trees and flowers and all of these magical things that I really kind of was overlooking this whole time. I feel like suffering, on its basis is obviously caused by something that hurts you. But I feel like from this class, something that I've learned about suffering is that it comes in all shapes and sizes. It affects people in all different ways. So I think an insight that I gained onto the idea of suffering, and this really came to me when we watched the videos about the Rwandan genocide, and when I don't know how to say that woman's name, and I apologize, but when we watched the video of that individual woman who survived that genocide, that video really had a big impact on me. And an insight that she gave me towards suffering, and especially in my own situation, is that, suffering is what you make of it, because here she was just focusing on the negatives, and she was so scared and so afraid until she realized, that there's something to be gained from this. We can make this positive, we can find our ways to forgive ourselves. We can focus on the Bible and things that make us happy, and we can make it through this horrible situation where we know we're going to lose our family members, our friends. All these important things are going to be taken away from us. But in the end, we, hopefully we will survive and we will make it, and we can, make better lives for ourselves. And I think that's another thing too, is that suffering is what you make of it. And, in my own situation, when everything started going downhill and I realized that the situation was going to end the way that it did, I, was so hard on myself. I had a really tough time with my mental health, my physical health as well. And I just, realized when I saw that video that suffering is really what you make of it. It is a benefit that some people do, especially people that have strong faith, to go through a tough situation and say, you know what, it's okay, because this tough situation is going to get me to a better time. And I think that that's the magical thing about some suffering, is that you can suffer but still gain hope in the same token. And that really is magical, I think. But that suffering is really what you make of it. That's the insight that I've gained about suffering, and also about hope. Hope is what you make of it too. You can dwell on that situation that you're suffering, or you can take bits and pieces from suffering and see the light in it. Like, for example, that woman was able to see, okay, like, either, I can, dwell in this situation, or I can find it in my heart to forgive these people, and I can move on and heal myself. And that really was impactful to me in ways that I couldn't even put into words. That sentence that she stated about holding, how much power can one person have over you by being hateful, by you being hateful and angry towards them, is really what I think the insight of all this is about, is that suffering is what you make of it. And you can choose to hold on to that hate and that anger, or you can choose to forgive and then hold on to the hope that the situation will become better. You have to have faith in this situation. And lastly, all of the aspects of this course material really, made sense to me. The redemptive suffering, the communal suffering, the suffering of an individual, the value of suffering, like I said, it just, I kind of stated, is different to me now. When we're going through and you're seeing, like I said, I'm not religious, so the beginning part of the class where we were reading more about religious works is a little bit different for me. But the second part, when we came to, communal suffering such as the Holocaust, or individual, and, the genocide, and then on to, individual accounts of people, suffering, I think that, like I said, the value of suffering is that it teaches you things. Even in Amish Grace, in that last video that we watched, that suffering led Ida to have a breakthrough and realize that even in suffering you can be kind and you can be gentle, because her daughter, knowing that she was going to die, was still able to tell that man, I will pray for you. She knew that man was going to kill her, and she still had that kindness and that love in her heart to say, I will pray for you. And she was brave, and she died, but she faced it with grace. And I think that that's something, and that a value of suffering is that even though we are suffering, we can learn from our suffering, and that's really important. My own suffering, what impacted me the most was, as I said, the video that we watched on the Rwandan genocide, when I watched that woman's story, and she said, that she was sitting there and she was focusing on, all that hate and anger, and the fact that all those people were going out and killing her family and her friends, and she knew what kind of horrible things that they were doing, and they were searching the home that she was hiding in, and this and that. And that, after reading the Bible, she'd be like, I'll pray for them, but I still hate them, I'm still mad. And what she said about forgiveness, and I think forgiveness really here is what impacted me the most and helped me the most in my own suffering, is that carrying hate and anger in your heart lets someone have so much control over your life, because you're hanging on to this hatred and this anger, and it's just tearing you apart. And even in the Amish Grace video, the father said it as well to Kate. I can't remember his name. I know it began with a G, but that hate is a little monster that's in your heart, and it'll rip your heart apart until there's no room left for love. It'll eat it up. And that's really what I realized that I was doing in my own situation. Instead of learning to forgive that man for all of the things that he had done to me and all the things in my life that he had ruined, I needed to learn how to forgive him so that I could move on in my own life, in my own way. And that, I think, the idea that suffering can teach someone forgiveness is the greatest gift and the greatest impact that suffering can have on the world, is that it teaches us forgiveness. It teaches us kindness. It teaches us how to not only be kind to ourselves, but kind to others. And that, I think, even though we can go through these tough situations, we can come back and come together, or come to ourselves and be kind to ourselves. I think that that's the most redeeming quality that it has, that suffering has. And that's the greatest gift and the greatest value that suffering can give to the world. Thank you.